Hi, I'm Jarvis Lewis, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take some user input for my little lottery program that I've been working on and have the user enter 6 lucky numbers that can be compared to each of the random draws we've been featuring so far. And at the same time, I'm also going to put some statistics functionality into the program. But first, let's deal with the user input and comparing that user input to the numbers that have been drawn. So here's the program running. I hope you've been following along and you've been very entertained by that, and I hope you've been adapting it to your local lottery because they're all very different. So it's one of those things. It's difficult to show the lottery that is relevant to you. But in my case, I chose the German lottery, which is 6 numbers out of 49. That's one of the many lotteries that are available on the planet. And this is what the output looks like. So right now we're making sure there's no double numbers that are coming up, and the numbers are also being presented in a sorted fashion. And I've shown you how to do that in the previous videos. So right now what the program is really missing is for me to supply, hey, my lucky numbers are these, and could you tell me if any of these match any of these current draws? So that's the subject for this little video. Let's stop this and have a look at it. And one of those things is, as the program gets longer and more complex, it is a great idea to have a list there to just show what subroutine does what and which variable does what. So right now we only have quite a few here, but let me bring up a little, just a text editor will do fine for this, just so that we don't lose what we're doing here. So in line 200 we have our bubble sort routine, and then in line 300 we have a routine called space the numbers, just so that I remember that. And then that's kind of everything we have. The first part of the program just deals with how to generate the random number and then calls the various subroutines, but there'll be several more added to this over the next few videos. So let's make sure we're completing this list, or we're amending this list as we go along. Now the other thing I find very important to remember is what variables were we using. So we were using nx, and that is my random numbers array, or the current draw. Let's just say random numbers array. That's cool. A current draw. There, current draw, something like that. We also have smaller variables like I and j, so those are just counter variables. I'm not going to mention those. We have rn, of course, which is the current random number. Then we have a string. I'm also not going to mention a string or x and y. So I think these are the most important ones right now. I guess the input routine we're just going to put in line 400. Input lucky numbers. And let's get started. Whoops. In this window, of course. So 400 input lucky numbers. Now, the way I like to do this is with a simple input command, but I'd also like to tell the user what he is supposed to do. So I'm going to print out a little statement here first and say, tell me 6 lucky numbers, and I'll say between 1 and 49. And I'm going to follow that with an empty line there. In line 420, I'm going to take all these lucky numbers in using a for loop. So for I equals 1 to 6, because we need 6 numbers. In line 430, I'm going to go and say input number 1. And then I'll put the semicolon there. And then this is also going to be an array, I guess we'll put in here, which I will call LU for lucky numbers, and it's LUX, so that's going to be an array, lucky numbers array. There. So because we're only having 6 numbers, we don't need to dimension the array. We can just go for it and say LUI. And in line 440, we go for next. In line 450, we're going to start a space again. So just print that out. And in line 499, I'm going to return. So that's that. And of course, we need to call that somewhere at the top. I'd say before the program gets going. So I guess in line 15 we can call that, or the end of line 10 there perhaps. Let's do that with go sub 400. And that'll take our lucky numbers in, and then we'll start drawing these things. Speaking of which, I'm also going to add a variable here, which will be the dr. And dr will be the current draw number. So currently we're generating random numbers, but we're never looking at how many draws have I had so far. So I'd like to have a counter there that gets kicked off at dr. Whoops, no. So that's the draw counter. So dr. Oh dear, no, that's not good, that's not good. So let's, no, that's also not good. Oh, let's just abandon that. Why don't we do that in line 11, right? Line 11, dr equals 1. That is all we wanted to do. And then of course we want to increment that counter as we go through the draws. So let's see where that happens. So this is drawing the 6 numbers here. And then we're going to the subroutine in line 200, which is where we sort this out. And then just before we go and return to 20, this is in line 199. This is where I'm going to do in line 90, 195. I maybe say dr equals dr plus 1. So then that counter gets incremented. And then of course the other thing is I need to print it out somewhere. So let's see where that happens. So we're sorting the array out, and then we're printing all these numbers out. So just before that happens here, when I print that line out, maybe perhaps in line 105, I'm just going to call draw dr, and then I'll perhaps present a colon, and then all the other numbers can come out. Let's see how it works when we run this program now. Tell me 6 lucky numbers. Well, perhaps I should spell lucky correctly as well. I will do that in a minute. Just so that we test the program, I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that should really increment the count, not just number 1 all the time. So we're going to fix that as well. And then the program kicks off with draw 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Okay, so we're almost there. So first of all, we're going to spell lucky correctly. Otherwise, very unlucky we will be. Rather than it all just being an input, I'm going to have to take this out and solve the rest with a print statement here. So print number I, and then a colon, and then the input command. That should do the trick. Let's see if that works. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, and 6. And there we go. And also lucky is spelled correctly now. Right, so that's the input routine done. I now have my lucky numbers in the program, but right now we don't have anything to compare them against. So let's write a little compare routine, and I say we put that in line 500 here. Compare numbers. Let's do that. So in line 500, we need to compare my lucky numbers against the current draw that's been made. So you can imagine this to be a matrix of 6 by 6 numbers. So that's basically 36 values that we need to compare there. So we need to compare the first number in my array to all 6 numbers that have been drawn, then the second number in my array to all 6 numbers that have been drawn, and so forth. So it'll be 2 loops that will be utilized there. Before we do that, there's another variable that we need here, which is I want to see if any of my numbers have actually been matched. So in order to do that, I'm going to add a match counter here as well. So I'm going to call that MA, and that's the matched numbers counter. I'm going to set that to 0 in this line 510 here. In line 520, I'm going to start the first loop. So for I equals 1 to 6. And because we need to compare all my 6 numbers to all the other 6 numbers, we need another loop. So for j equals 1 to what? I? No, can't do I. We need to use 6 here as well, because we need to match all 36 numbers, well, all the 6 numbers against other 6 numbers. That's what we need to do here. And so then in 540, we're going to say if my lucky numbers, this is why it's good to have this little table here so that we know what variable is what. If LUI, which is my first lucky number, matches the currently drawn lucky number NJ, then I would just like to flag up that we've matched one number. So then MA equals MA plus 1. If that is not the case in 550, we're just going to call next J, and then we'll call next I, and in 599 we can return. That should technically do the trick down here. Now all that remains to be done is to call this at the appropriate place. So we're sorting the numbers here. We're saying this is the draw number. Then we print out all these numbers. And then before we do that next free line of print, like here in line 135 perhaps, we can say if MA is larger than 0, then print perhaps a space, and we'll say match, and then the amount of numbers that have matched. Let's see if it works. I have no idea. Let's try it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are my lucky numbers. And that's not quite working because we're never calling the subroutine, are we? So I can see some numbers are matching here, but I'm never calling the subroutine, so I can't really match any numbers there. That's probably why. So I'm asking if MA is larger than 0, which might be, but we wouldn't know because we're never going to that subroutine there. So I think I'll do that here in line 106. When we print the draw number, line 106 will say go sub 500. Right, let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There we go, and looks like we've got some matches here. Now perhaps the word match is a little bit too long. Looks like we're matching a lot here. That seems to be a very lucky guy, or there's something dodgy going on with those random numbers. Okay, I'm going to abbreviate that to just an M and put an extra couple of spaces in between here. I think that is that's going to be nice. So that's just going to be M, and there's going to be a couple more spaces in between here. That should do the trick. So that is how we can compare if we've matched any numbers in the current draw. Now the beauty of this is, of course, that we could keep letting the physical computer run, and it'll run at kind of approximately this speed. Or if we use something like Vice, the emulator that I'm using here, you can just press Command W or Control W to go into warp mode, and then of course it'll run as fast as your computer hardware, your modern computer hardware allows you to do that. Fantastic. Or press Command W or Control W again, and then it'll go back into normal speed. So that was that. The number matching routine was very sweet and short and simple. Let's just have another look at it. It was in line 500, and that's all we're doing here. We're comparing these numbers, and we're making sure we're comparing each number against each other number. And then the only other thing is we're incrementing this counter for matched numbers. In the next video, we're going to have a look at incrementing another counter, which will count up how many single numbers we've matched, how many times we matched 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers, and so forth, to see how many times you would have to really draw a new lottery thing. How many tickets would you have to buy in order to win that super jackpot of matching all 6 numbers? If you like that, then please stick around for that. If you like this video, of course, then please share it with friends, family, and total strangers, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope I will see you next time. Take care and bye-bye.